Cubic centimeters of molded plastic. It has no value. It's not even an object in itself. About the size of a sugar cube. It's merely a hollow parallelepiped. And yet, this non-object seemed to mid-20th century Westerners to be the ideal tool to exercise the hands and brains of their smaller versions. Early on, these smaller versions of man take anything that happens into their hands and explore it with their mouths. This is how they discover the world. These exercises allow them to acquire the necessary skills to feed themselves, hold objects, make, build, and reshape the world. Man made the hand, wrote theoretician Harry Fisher, by which I mean he gradually removed it from the animal world, gradually freed it from ancient natural servitude. Yet the hand made man too. Light, solid, easy to handle, clean, smooth, shiny, and colored. They're irresistible. We can't resist putting them together. The automatic binding bricks, patented in 1958, had 8 studs on top and 3 tubes in the hollow cavity. The studs are slightly larger than the space between the tubes and the wall. When you push 2 bricks together, the studs force the tubes and wall apart. Acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, or ABS, is ductile. It wants to return to its original shape, which means that the walls and tubes tighten against the studs. Male pieces and female pieces simply interlock, in much the same way as a mortise and tenon joint, an ancestral technique that the founder of LEGO was familiar with. Every LEGO construction since 1958 has followed the same principle and is wholly compatible with others. You can adapt assembly after assembly and pass them from one generation to the next.
C'est moi, le 3e petit cochon, je construirai ma maison en briques.
The predecessor of automatic binding bricks may have been the rubber mini bricks made in Britain in 1935. Made of hard rubber with the required ability to deform under pressure, allowing the interlocking of studs and holes. Or perhaps Build-A-Brick made in the USA. In the late 1930s, Harry Fisher Page patented his own version under the Kittycraft label. These were cellulose-based molded cubes. Great pedagogue and designer that he was, Page was won over by modernity and the virtues of plastic, which was hygienic and could be made in a spectrum of bright colors. In 1946, Page designed a smaller-scale system for older children, which included a rectangular 8-studded brick. This would inspire the legendary brick manufactured by LEGO. Like Kittycraft bricks, the very first produced by LEGO in 1949 were completely hollow and ensured only a precarious assembly. LEGO would solve the problem in 1958 with its now renowned automatic binding. The LEGO system, like that of its predecessors, was born out of the techniques of joinery and masonry. it was still a question of bricklaying, but without the mortise and tenon joint. And it may be more than a coincidence that building brick toys came about in countries with brick-built homes. Think of the terraced streets of Britain or the crenellated tympans of Denmark. The first molded clay bricks appeared in countries with hot climates in about 5,000 years BC. Brickmakers simply left them to dry in the sun for about 2 centuries before deciding to bake them in order to make them harder. Early bricks were parallelepipeds with a precise ratio between the 3 dimensions. The length is twice the width and twice the height, making them easy to hold in one hand. This is the same for the smaller Lego brick, the length of which is twice the width and height, allowing a 2-year-old to hold it between thumb and index finger like pliers. The Duplo brick, invented in 1969, would be twice the size in length and width to make handling easier for babes and toddlers. The first construction toys appeared in the late 17th century for the nobility. Very soon, the publishers of popular prints were bringing out inexpensive cardboard toys. In the 19th century, against a backdrop of intense industrialization and urbanization, construction sets spread to the middle classes. The cult construction set Meccano, invented in the late 19th century, reflected the era's infatuation with machines. From then on, generations of boys became initiates of the joys of mechanics. Today, ultra-basic building blocks have become fashionable among the middle classes with their nostalgia for all things natural, notably wood. The system, reduced to its simplest form, can even defy gravity. A growing child is happy to build. Inside, outside, windows and a door, a path and a roof with a chimney pot. The house takes shape. A crucial exercise in building one's own image. All children are preoccupied with building a world over which he or she has dominion. Building and demolishing. Demolishing and rebuilding. A never-ending story. We spend our lives in the pursuit of self-construction, whether we're artists, architects, Lego enthusiasts, or a simple homo habilis.
Ein Legostein. Noch ein Legostein. Damit kann man bauen. Das ist ein Hund. Das ist die Hütte für den Hund. Das ist das Haus mit der Hütte für den Hund. Das ist die Straße zu dem Haus mit der Hütte für den Hund. Das ist der Turm an der Straße zu dem Haus mit der Hütte für den Hund und bei gutem Wetter kann man oben vom Turm ganz unten den kleinen Hund erkennen. Mit Lego kann man alles bauen.
Some believe the name comes from the Latin Lego, meaning I assemble. But Ole Kirk Christensen was unaware of this when he registered his new company. In fact, he coined it from the first 2 letters of the Danish words leg godt, which means play well. It all started in the 1930s in the Danish village of Billund. Like everywhere, it was in the throes of the Depression, and the carpenter Ole Kirk Christensen had no houses to build. To survive, he began making useful objects. With the offcuts, he made wooden toys, which he sometimes exchanged for provisions. Once the yo-yo craze ended, the surplus was used to make wheels for toy carriages. After the fire of 1942, Ole Kirk Christensen decided to introduce plastic into his new factory, to the great displeasure of those who believed nothing could ever replace wood. One of the first assembled toys, the Ferguson tractor, turned out to be too expensive to produce. The 15 different parts required heavy investment for the 15 different molds. Bricks were much simpler. You could make them in their thousands and write off the cost of the molds much sooner. In 1949, LEGO brought out its first set of self-blocking bricks. But it wasn't much more than a pile of little bricks, and it met with limited success. Christensen's son Gottfried suggested the LEGO Merston system ELEG concept, enabling children to build a street scene or a town. They made sure to include the word system on the box. The town in kit form proved to be a stroke of marketing genius. Gottfried Christensen remembers racking his brain to come up with the idea.
Jeg gik og spekulerede og drømte om det om natten, og når jeg gik i seng om aftenen, der er ingen system i det. Vågne om morgenen, der er ingen system i det. Jeg kan ikke blive fri for den tanke med system.
Und alle machen mit, die ganze Familie. Alle bauen, groß und klein, bauen mit dem Lego-Stein.
In 1955, the word system helped sales to skyrocket in Denmark. Exports increased and LEGO conquered the German toy market. 1964, an airport funded by the company and the local authorities brought Billund out of isolation. The Christensens were ready to conquer the world. Their passport, a brand new brick in ABS. This new material made the brick stable. They kept their color and no longer warped. The 1960s and 70s were the ABS years. ABS, acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, a new industrial thermoplastic used to make light, rigid, and very solid products. ABS comes in the form of granules pre-dyed with pigments. Heated to 232 degrees Celsius, the granules melt into fluid form. This is then injected at high pressure into the molds. 7 seconds later, the bricks are ejected. Molds used in the production of objects this small are extremely precise. The margin for error is 0.002 of a millimeter, and out of every million produced, only 18 on average fail to meet quality control standards, but even these can be recycled. Every year, about 19 billion pieces leave the plant in Billund. That's 36,000 a minute. Now, the world's 5th largest toy manufacturer, the LEGO company has diversified.
Get your hands on the new LEGO technique.
Aimed at rejuvenating the brand, the Technic range and the programmable robots Mindstorms have met with limited success. And LEGO has decided to refocus on its original bricks. Amid a blaze of publicity. On its own, one brick is pretty useless and incongruous. It must be joined to others in a system in order to build a whole. In ancient Greek, systema means integrated whole. Plato and Aristotle used the word to designate both an army unit and a political constitution. In modern times, the system has been established as a scientific criterion, a counterbalance to the haphazard piling up of chaos. A brick is only one piece in a system, a modular system. And it's only by combining with other elements in the same system that things begin to take shape. Two 8-stud bricks can be joined together in 46 different ways. With 6 bricks, there are over 900 million possibilities. After the chaos of the Second World War, LEGO was in tune with an era obsessed by rebuilding. While children attempted to rebuild their lives, architects indulged in plays of form and modularity under the guise of affordability. Le Corbusier, one of the leading lights of modernist architecture, designed framework structures that totally broke with tradition. His modular system was inspired by a classical notion of proportion. Taking one man as a unit of measure, 2 men, one on top of the other, would give the height of the ceiling. Le Corbusier invented a new metric theory with his modular scale. This took into consideration the measurements of body parts, legs, torso, etc., which were then applied to determine the height of ceilings, doors, and windows. Modular thought swept round the world. In the United States, Ray and Charles Ames brought a playful touch to their disciplined parallelepipeds. Perhaps we should look for the seeds of the modular thought adopted by certain minimalists in pedagogue Friedrich Froebel's educational toys, which he introduced into his kindergarten in 1839. The architect Frank Lloyd Wright played with the so-called Froebel gifts in his childhood. Cubes, parallelepipeds, harmonies, and proportions were the grammatical building blocks of his formal architectural language. Now, some 150 years after the Froebel gifts that influenced Frank Lloyd Wright, the modularity of LEGO is inspiring contemporary architects. White, red, yellow, blue, black. The LEGO bricks of 1958 were influenced by the avant-garde movements of the early 20th century, such as De Stijl. For the artist Mondrian, only primary colors were essential. He used black and white, which he considered non-colors, to mark out and partition space. The LEGO spectrum was broadened to include the secondary color green, obtained, as we all know, by mixing the primary colors blue and yellow. Green, as if to bring the plant world into the equation, but also gray, the gray of urban concrete. And then softer colors like pink, introduced in 1994 to appeal to girls. The toys we give to girls and boys are generally based on stereotypes, the roles they're supposed to fulfill in society. Dolls, baby buggies, beads, vacuum cleaners, and irons for girls. Cars, tools, computers, and Lego for boys. It took women's lib and the intervention of educationalists before construction sets such as Lego were finally offered to girls. Could we soon see a new wave of women architects and computer programmers? In 50 years, the Lego brick has become so much more than a little three-dimensional piece of plastic. It's an icon, a rallying sign. The Lego system constitutes a common language to a growing number of adult fans. It's a genuine cultural phenomenon. The artist Jan Voorman uses it to repair broken walls in our capitals, the scars of war or simple wear and tear. And brick films, made by brick fans, now number in the hundreds. Lego bricks have been compared to the letters of the alphabet. Praise has been lavished on their educational and creative virtues. But isn't this the same for a colored crayon or any other object placed into the hands of the smaller version of man?
Petersen, Poulsen, Pallesen og Pil tog ud en dejlig sommernat i posemandens bil. Skoven var en sølle skov, for der var ingen træer. Men det var lige fedt med det, for det var dejligt vejr. Petersen, Poulsen, Pallesen og Pil tog ud en dejlig sommernat i posemandens bil. Skoven var en sølle skov, for der var ingen træer. Men det var lige fedt med det, for det var dejligt vejr.
Designed by the 20th century's most atypical architect-designer Jean Prouvé, cafeteria table number 512, better known as the compass table, combines the intelligent use of metal with the economy of industrial production. Two compasses in folded sheet metal, welded to a tubular crossbar, support a tabletop of wood chip and other materials. Designed in 1948 and mass-produced in 1953, the compass met the norms of tables required by staff cafeterias in state-run industries. But firstly, what is a table? All dictionary definitions tend to agree. It's a top resting on one or more legs. So a table must have the obligatory always horizontal surface. But the rest is a question of period, usage, means, and design. In antiquity, tables were small, folding, and individual. The Romans lay down alongside them to feast, whereas medieval revelers were the first to sit together around a long board on trestles. Tables were set up for banquets, then taken down after. The habit of sitting down together for meals thus came rather late. Although primarily for sharing meals, the table is nonetheless hard to define, for this universal multipurpose item of furniture is the focal point of our activity. The compass table is used to order, to a collective ceremonial march past. Its original purpose was functional, social, and economic. It's inextricably linked to numbers, crowds, and lineups. Similar to army, hospital, and factory furniture, it is simple and robust. The descendant of village hall tables, it's the close cousin of the legions of anonymous tables that welcomed workers and students. In the 1950s, Jean Prouvé's compass table, cafeteria number 512, was a mainstay of the on-campus refectories of the University of Paris. Born at the dawning of the 20th century in the shadow of the steel mills of Lorraine, and raised in the spirit of the École de Nancy, which combined art and industry, and which was co-founded by his artist father Victor Prouvé and his godfather Émile Gallet, Jean Prouvé was not a natural heir to Art Nouveau. Rejecting its decorative elegance, he sought a true sense of poetry in the technical object, and retained from his upbringing idealism combined with a solid realism. At 16, he became an apprentice metalworker, a craft he would often refer to, and one which gave him a remarkable knowledge of the resistance of materials. Blacksmith, locksmith, craftsman in wrought iron, Jean Prouvé had an intimate relationship with metal. This visionary humanist, while maintaining a technical refinement, spoke in terms of economy and surpassed the functional by putting beauty and intelligence at the service of all with a rare sense of ethics. In our social drama, the table is the first scene. Under the table, under the stage, are the trestles, the basic structure that has always supported tabletops. One might say that one of the formal inventions of the compass is that the top rests on a single trestle. It's the opposition of the two legs, contrary yet identical forces, which gives the compass maximum load resistance. The structure of the compass is rational. More substance at points where there are bigger mechanical constraints. According to Prouvé, this table is made up of forms of equal resistance. This means making the forms stronger in places where they work the most, which in turn makes the spirit of the material visible. The compass is at a standard height for dining tables, 72 centimeters. With a variable size of top, from 70 to 120 centimeters, it can seat from 2 to 8 people. The compass came with numerous different tops, symmetrical or off-center, straight or curved, edged in aluminum, in solid wood, laminated wood, formica, and even plexiglass for the display case version. Like all items of furniture with a compass structure, the table has a tubular steel crossbar to which the tapering legs are welded. Two end consoles mask the joint and support the top. All is light yet very solid, as is the hinge on the folding version. The 1953 compass, forever linked with the students who ate at it, is today sold at extravagant prices. But at the time, it was the embodiment of economy. Economy in cost, manufacture, and materials. School furniture was big business for the atelier's Jean Prouvé. The lovely 1935 desk in wood and metal was made until 1950. The four legs and seats are early heralds of the compass. The 1948 compass desk was at the origin of the compass table. Casings for drawers in folded sheet metal were fitted under the desktops destined for use by students, secretaries, and executives. Philosopher and art and architecture historian Hubert Damisch knew Jean Prouvé in the 1950s and was one of the first to acknowledge his importance.
Ce n'est pas du tout un rêveur, pas du tout un utopiste. C'était un structuraliste, au fort sens du mot. Et il était très occupé de ces structures, de ce qu'il y a d'élémentaire dans le structuraliste. On parle de quelque chose qui est déjà une structure. Le détail, c'est déjà quelque chose de structuré et de structurant. Une notion complètement différente de l'industrialisation. Une industrialisation du détail, tout partait d'un détail, une structure élémentaire, comme disait Lévi-Strauss. On est en plein structuralisme. Et ce que Prouvé faisait, c'est inventer des structures élémentaires.
In the 1930s, Jean Prouvé began producing furniture on industrial machines using stainless metals. After the war, in an aim to access industry, he opened a factory in Maxéville for larger-scale experimentation. This avant-garde research lab, frequented by many leading architects, was of vital importance to this humanist entrepreneur who preferred to design amid the hubbub of the workshop, scrambling between drawing board and prototype, the better to study a detail. In the early 1950s, France was in the full throes of rebuilding. But after the disaster of war, people were in desperate need and daily life was a struggle. Jean Prouvé, who excelled in an emergency, contributed to urban development by discounting the norms of housing. To meet needs, he provided the essential with intelligence and generosity, going so far as to build the renowned prototype houses for Abbé Pierre's charity, financed by an original publicity campaign.
Nous avons décidé de mener une bataille pour la grande série du logement confortable, du beau logement, et pas cher grâce à la grande série. Devant la détresse des petits gosses que nous voyons du matin au soir avec les mamans qui pleurent, nous avons décidé qu'il ne fallait pas faire de l'idéalisme et qu'il fallait être réaliste.
À partir des mêmes principes, simplicité, économie, rapidité, et pour résoudre l'immense problème des sans-logis, Jean Prouvé, le créateur de cette maison, va réaliser dans le cadre de cette campagne la maison des jours meilleurs.
The 1950s was a decade of worldwide political thaw, of decolonization and de-Stalinization. France launched the European Coal and Steel Community, a forerunner of the European Union. There is an oblique dynamic in the body of a gymnast, dancer, or swimmer. The shape of the compass is anthropomorphic, echoing legs ready for action, the part of ourselves that we forget when they're under the table.
François Truffaut disait « Les jambes des femmes sont comme des compas qui arpentent le globe terrestre en tous sens, lui donnant son équilibre et son harmonie. » les jambes des femmes, l'équilibre, l'harmonie. Il est bien là le secret de la table compas, dans ses jambes. J'en ai été définitivement convaincu une nuit quand elle s'est mise à danser. Chut, les voisins.
Jean Prouvé's first compass-type portico resembles the steel frame of his canvas tent, manufactured in 1939, early signs of a nomadic nature. Prouvé's architecture is full of compass legs, which swing between shelter and canopy, portico and table, always with the weight taken by the tips of the compass. What better than a bare table as a first approach to the forms of Jean Prouvé, the doubting Thomas of construction, who only believed in what he experienced? For him, architecture and design required identical research and materials. The compass table was his last furniture system. But it originated in a principle of mechanics elaborated for his portico house, the first architectural structure he developed. Jean Prouvé wanted industrial construction to resemble the motor car industry, which he found fascinating. In short, he wanted to build houses in the same way as cars.
L'industrie automobile, à la différence de l'industrie du bâtiment, l'industrie automobile a intérêt à consommer le moins possible de métal. Les carrosseries sont de plus en plus légères. Alors il faut trouver les moyens de les plier pour qu'elles résistent. Une carrosserie très fine, bien pliée, pliée astucieusement, peut résister à des chocs beaucoup plus violents qu'une structure soi-disant solide. Et pour ça intéresse énormément Prouvé. Parce que comment l'économie peut aller avec l'efficacité. Son idéal, c'était une architecture qu'on amènerait avec des hélicoptères. C'est une maison qu'on amène en hélicoptère, on la pose là, et puis quand on en a assez de la maison, il y a l'hélicoptère qui revient, puis on enlève la maison, et elle ne laisse aucune trace. Le paysage n'est pas abîmé, il n'y a pas de ruines, il n'y a rien, c'est l'architecture écologique par excellence, sans que le mot ait été prononcé. La légèreté, c'était une chose très, très importante pour lui. L'industrie française a voulu le détruire, il avait trouver des moyens d'économiser le métal. Là où on mettait 50 kilos de métal, il n'en mettait que 20 à lui. Donc ça n'arrangeait pas du tout Péchinet qui vendait du métal.
In 1956, Jean Prouvé lost control of his pilot factory. The entrepreneur cum experimenter was heartbroken, but the creator became a consultant for big architectural projects and would be in great demand as a teacher.
Vous savez que je voulais faire la construction légère, donc la tôle fine m'intéressait. Nous avons été conduits à composer une architecture absolument différente de celle qui se pratiquait à ce moment-là. La coupe de la maison s'est finalement présentée comme ceci. Bien entendu, il y avait un assemblage au milieu. J'ai posé une poutre supportée par un clou. Nous avons raccordé à cela un portique en compas. Nous a permis de supporter une poutre transversale. Nous avions là toute la structure de la maison et cette poutre transversale branchée sur le portique. Je reviens sur la légèreté. Tous ces éléments pouvaient être transportés par un seul homme.
There is magic in folding, because one rib transforms the mechanical resistance of a sheet. Apathetic, amorphous, and without plasticity, it gains dynamic structure the moment it's folded. When the rib joins with the line of force, a single light and now efficient sheet can become a leg, beam, or pillar. Making things light yet solid is the problem of all technology. Jean Prouvé said, "You don't calculate folded sheet metal. You feel it, sense it." Hence the importance of the factory floor. A folding press is designed to bend cold sheet metal along a straight line between point and matrix. Folding has a double result: transformation and resistance. In Prouvé, everything is welded, a technique that permanently joins two pieces of metal. Welding produces continuity in matter by local fusion. Electrowelding is essential to folded sheet metal in that it seals the volume around a hollow space, enabling lightness without sacrificing strength. At the Atelier Jean Prouvé, folded sheet metal was lacquered and oven-cured like the finish on cars of the time. The legs of its tables and chairs also came in colors used in the automobile industry. In the economy of the compass, solidity and lightness are the two essential features of its framework, which appears to emulate the morphogenetic process of structures in nature. Because the ideal, in terms of body lightness, is the skeleton of a bird, with its hollow, fused wishbone, which is also compass-shaped. At table, only the top half of the body is seen, with hands and head performing the vital function of eating, which is why perhaps the table is the only piece of furniture subjected to rules of decorum. After all, no one tells you how to sit in an armchair or lie in a bed. The compass, while not being subjected to etiquette, nonetheless respects social convention. Tables always come with chairs. The one associated with the compass is the standard, with its disproportionate rear legs in folded sheet metal. It was designed before the war, but in 1951, 1,000 were produced to the factory in Maxeyville. Beneath the top, the legs adjust to the compass in a natural balance of diagonals between table and chair. Wood and metal parentheses around the seated body. The table, almost as much as the chair, is a rite of passage for the designer. Tables and chairs are complementary. In 1925, at the Bauhaus, the famous model B3, aka the Vasily chair, was created with seamless steel tubing. This sparked a fashion for tubular structures and paved the way for avant-garde tables. Leading architects inspired by these modern materials would build glass tables with steel legs as stable as houses. The folded sheet metal of Prouvé's first chair was a reaction against tubing, which he found lacking in constructive possibilities, although he did use it for its strength. Exceptional tables stand out from the bunch because of their legs, like these by Carlo Molino and Isamu Noguchi. In the 1950s, diagonals became all the rage, and numerous compass structures followed Jean Prouvé's. The table is a difficult exercise for designers of shapes because the tabletop is so restrictive. But Jean Prouvé produced some of the most exceptional tables of the 20th century. In 1929, the central fishbone base of his first table, with a rubber frame from an aeronautic system, is in folded sheet steel. The Cité from 1930 to 1953 for schools and hospitals, folded sheet steel and wood. The SAM from 1939 to 1952, linked to emergency furniture, then the domestic market, folded sheet steel and wood. Table for municipal building with hooks and drawer, padded top and folded sheet steel. refectory table with streamlined legs, 1936 with napkin holder tubes, folded galvanized sheet steel, and top in Gallipoli. Pedestal table, tapered legs, folded sheet steel and wood. The Flavigny, 1942, tapered legs in diagonal, folded sheet steel, top in terrazzo. The Centrale or Trapeze, 1951, furniture for 1930s amphitheater, folded sheet steel and wood. The Triennale de Milan, 1951-1956, tapered legs, folded sheet steel and wood. And the last table, the Compass, manufactured from 1953 to 1959, folded sheet steel and wood. In 1949, Steph Simon became the sales rep of the Atelier Jean Prouvé to take charge of the exclusive distribution of furniture. A catalogue of pieces produced in Maxéville meant that on the network of designer manufacturers, a new name appeared, Jean Prouvé, who didn't sign his works, staying in the background looking for solutions between project and fabrication. In '56, Steph Simon became a distributor and opened a gallery on the Boulevard Saint-Germain in Paris. Jean Prouvé designed the facade, a rare showcase for French designers emerging in the late 50s. It wasn't until 2002 that the Compass table was made again, this time by Vitra, the big Swiss manufacturer of designer furniture.
Ich habe die Prouvé-Tische immer bewundert und das war eigentlich mein Zugang, obwohl mein erstes Objekt der Sammlung ein Anthony-Stuhl war, habe ich aber immer eigentlich die Stühle, die Tische ganz besonders bewundert. In der Kunst ist ein Werk in dem Moment abgeschlossen, wo der Künstler es sozusagen beendet hat. Das Design ist anders als die Kunst auf Reproduktion angelegt. Also wenn man ein Produkt aus der Vergangenheit neu auflegt, schaut man nicht zunächst mal die Exemplare aus der Vergangenheit an. Man muss es also tief verstehen. Dann spricht man mit Experten. Alle Schritte wurden mit der Familie Prouvé natürlich abgestimmt. Dann 2002 mit den ersten Produkten begonnen. Und dort ist gerade bei Prouvé ja sehr interessant, dass ein Transfer stattgefunden hat. Also die Produkte, die damals sehr oft für soziale Institutionen, für Studentenheime und so weiter gemacht wurden, wurden sozusagen das aus ihrer Profanität herausgenommen und valorisiert und sind heute die Gegenstände, die eben bei Leuten, die aus dem Kulturmilieu stammen oder bei Sammlern auftauchen. Also es ist ein ganz anderer Einsatz als der ursprünglich gemeinte.
Some designers who work in metal have testified to being Jean Prouvé's direct descendants, with references in some of their pieces. Folded sheet metal is here to stay, because it's rare for so little of a particular material to have so many constructive capacities. However, the techniques of metalworking have changed since the time of Jean Prouvé. Nowadays, design is done on computers and cutting with lasers. The artists of the early 21st century seek inspiration in the designers of the 1950s. When the ruins of modernism are staged, the vestige is worth more than its original purpose. Astro Boy dreams while lying on a bench by Jean Prouvé, whose canopy, with paternal caution, shelters the relational aesthetic of an art that wants to play a social role. Jean Prouvé intuitively laid the foundation stone of high-tech architecture by combining aesthetics with the performance of materials. His pioneer table, structured like a compass, has long since deserted student refectories. But it is today celebrated as the table of contents of an architect-designer who tried to break through into the inconceivable.